Joy, tell me your name again, your full name.
Joy Lillie.
All right, Joy. Are you from this area, Joy?
I'm from Coopersville. I was born in Coopersville. Always lived here all my life.
I see. And your connection that you'd like to talk about tonight, as far as World War II, were you in the service yourself?
I was in the 51st Field Hospital.
So you were in a wax? Is that
No,
is
the
that proper?
nurses.
The nurses corps. The nurse corps. Okay.
We were with the hospital, the nurses.
Were you a nurse prior to you doing this, or were
Yeah,
you
I was
trained?
a nurse at home. Graduated from St. Mary's in Grand Rapids.
Is that right?
And then I went into the service, and I got signed to Africa first.
Were they out? Were they soliciting people like yourself, or
Oh,
did
yes.
you volunteer?
Oh, yeah, I volunteered. I volunteered while I was in Detroit, and that was good.
So-
Without Dad's approval?
What?
Did you talk to Dad? Had you talked to Dad about it?
No, I hadn't talked to Dad and Mother. I had a hard time getting in nurses training with them, let alone join the Army. But we did
So
it.
you didn't have much training once you were in the Army. You were already trained.
Yeah, I was trained before I went in. We went right into the hospital. As soon as I got in the service, I was on the hospital in
So when you left this country, the first place you went was where?
North Africa.
I see.
I went there. I was there 9 months doing nothing. We were assigned to hospitals, ships, to bring back wounded soldiers. Well, we got over there, and there were several units, like the one I was in, that they disbanded them. And so we were left in North Africa for 9 months before we got back to the States. We didn't do anything. We were just sitting in the
What part of North Africa were you in?
the north part near Oran.
Oh, yeah.
Oran is where we were.
It wasn't a nice vacation spot.
Well, it was.
Oh.
It was right on the sea. It was right on the Mediterranean Sea, and it was beautiful during the day, but it was cold at night.
What did you do to occupy your days for 9 months?
Well, we did nothing. We did nothing. Went to church. They had church every night, so we could go to church, and we just wasted away,
Is that right?
doing nothing.
Right. So then you came back to the United States.
Came back to the States, and I was reassigned within a couple weeks to the field hospital.
Where?
Yeah, I was in South Carolina.
I see.
And was reassigned to this 51st Field Hospital that was ready to go overseas, but one of the nurses got pregnant, so they had to get a recruit. And I had all the overseas gear and everything, so we were picked to go with them, which made us all unhappy that we had to go overseas so quick. But that didn't matter. We went, and it was a good unit. I was glad I was in it.
I'm going to, this gentleman's going to take over for me,
Okay.
but fascinating. Yeah, and she's been to Africa and back here, and now she's about to go back over again.
Is that when you went to Normandy?
She was in the Army.
When you went back the second time?
Yeah.
You got to be sure you ask her about Russ. I think that he's really sure to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, just take your time and keep going.
Back, Mom. That was when you were on Normandy.
Yeah, when the invasion. After we were stationed in England for a long time, for 2-3 months before the invasion started.
You were over there for the invasion of Normandy?
No, yeah.
On a hospital ship?
No, we were stationed on land. We were the unit. The hospital was there on D+2 when the nurses arrived in D+6. The invasion, and
How soon was it before you started seeing people coming back to your hospital?
well, we had patients right away. We had patients right away, and the boys and the officers took care of them till we got there. then the nurses did their job, taking care of the patients. And it was a story when we got off the ship that we had landed in Normandy on. We had to crawl down a rubber ladder to get to the landing boat, and then the landing boat took us to shore. And the commanding officer that took care of us, we had to walk up a hill. And he said, "Now be sure you stay in line because it hasn't been mine detected yet." So we didn't stray off where we were going. We were so scared. We were hearing noises and bombing and stuff. We were scared enough without that on our heads. But as we went up the hill, a funny experience happened. Enemy got pretty strong, so we got off and got in a pillbox that the Germans had left, and there was a little sailor in there. He was wounded, not bad, but he was wounded, and he said, wondered what all these women were doing in a place like that. There was 18 women. We were divided in platoons, and there were 18 of us. And he said, "What in the hell are you doing here?"
But as soon as he found out, he was pretty happy.
Yeah, he was happy to see somebody because he had to wait to get fixed, and he was wounded bad, so he was taken care of later. But that was the experience going up that hill. But we landed in D+6, and the enemy had been pushed back quite a ways by that time. So by the time we got the hospital set up, we were stationed there a long time before we got moved. Then as it moved, our hospital was divided into 3 platoons. So we hopscotched each other. We get all the patients healed enough to go back to an evac, and then the other company would move in ahead of us, and then we'd move ahead of them. And that's the way the platoon worked. So it was good that one of our platoons was always close to the lines. One time our commanding officer was pretty good about getting us close to the lines. And he was old Army, regular Army, and he was pushy. And he got us to the lines too close one time. We got pushed back about a mile in a ditch overnight because of the air length and stuff was too strong. We had to move back. That was an experience. We had a girl from the headquarters with us that night, and she hadn't been into the lines that long. She was pretty scared. But that was what happened. And we went over through Germany, through France first, followed the lines, and into Germany. We had one real bad part at that time. Excuse me a minute. One of our units, we were stationed in Germany, Rotgen the town was, and the boys had been left out in the field too long and they had gotten pneumonia. And that was the one place where we lost a lot of soldiers. They had gotten pneumonia and we couldn't save them. It was a very depressing setup for us because we didn't usually lose many. That was real depressing that time.
Wasn't that during the bulge? Was that during the bulge?
No, the bulge was later. Later, after the war was over, the bulge was going. But as the field progressed, the Germans removed. We got set up, as I said, platoon after platoon. And we covered a lot of territory after that. The lines were moving fast. We covered a lot of territory that time. Then after the war, or during the war ended, we got this Battle of the Bulge. I don't know if you guys remember about that. We were in Germany at the time, and we got pulled back to Belgium, a town by the name of Huy. It was a school was set up as a hospital, and we had patients from all over. We had German patients and American patients and everything all together because there were so many wounded at that time. And that was our story of the bulge, that we landed there. And that was the end of the war. That when the bulge was finished, that was the end of the war for the Germans. So then we were stationed in Russia once. Well, we were on leave then. We were just set up for patients of our own boys and something. They shot their toe off or something in excitement. Something like that. That's the kind of patients we got then. So that was then as we started home. I was going to tell you about Russ when we were in the fighting. Yes, I got leave to go down and see him. I was in 1st Army and he was in 7th Army. My commanding officer got me a Jeep and a driver, and they drove me down to where Russ was. And as I got there, he was coming up to see me. He'd gotten a Jeep and was on his way up to see me. So that was very disappointing trip for me. But we turned around and came back. No, we got together. He stayed. He had boils on his legs, so the commanding officer of my platoon put him in the hospital, so his leave didn't get started till he left the hospital. So that we had some time together that time. That was exciting. But that's about the history of my trip.
How about when you flew in the P-48?
Well, that was when I was trying to see Russ too. One time I flew in a P-48 from gosh, I can't remember. We went to Nuremberg where he dropped me off, but that was exciting. Riding in the back of the driver or the pilot, you know. But anyway, that was good. That was a good ride.
Did you ever have to treat prisoners?
Oh yes, we treated them right along with Americans. As they were wounded, we had to take care of them too. We had an experience with one. One was a captain, and he was wounded, and he spoke English real good, but he wouldn't help us with his companions. They were scared we were going to kill him and all that stuff that they'd been told that we would, you know. He wouldn't help us a bit, telling that we were just trying to help him or anything, but eventually he talked a little bit more, but he was bad because he was bad for the morale of his own soldiers because he didn't let them know that we were really trying to help them and not hurt them. But yes, every setup we had Germans too. So.
Now, when you moved ahead your hospital, is it these tents? Does somebody take them down for you and put them back up? There was a crew that did that?
No, we had the hospital, and then when we got through with them, they got ready enough blood and stuff so that they could go transport back to the VAC hospital, which followed the field hospitals. And they kept them, and they sent them back to the central surgical place. But we were the first ones on the line. There were several hospital platoons, and we were right on the line, so we got them. As soon as the collecting station got them, we got them. And we had bad patients, like wounded bad. They were stomachs and chests and amputations and everything we got because they couldn't go any farther back until they were treated. So that was the kind of patients we had. We had good surgeons. We had special surgeons, one for chests, one for stomachs, one for amputations. So we had all kinds of good surgeons. They worked long, hard hours too. So.
And what kind of facility did you stay in when you were?
We had tents. We had tents. Yeah. There was 6 of us to a tent. So.
There were people then with the medical corps that tore those down and moved them ahead.
Oh yeah.
Each time for you.
There were always somebody ahead. So that's the way we did it. One setup we had, which was real bad. It was real cold, and we were in tents. The hospital was in tents, and it was so cold that the blood wouldn't flow. So the engineers came and set up pot-belly stoves in our tents to warm up the area so the blood would flow. That was a bad setup because it was so cold and the wounded were bad. But we didn't lose too many due to that, but it was cold, bad setup. We had all kinds. We set up in schools mostly. if we could get into a town that had a school vacant, or we made it vacant, let's say, and we put our hospital in the schools instead of the tents. But tent setups were hard because we had a lot of rain and stuff, and engineers would come up and put boards and stuff down so we could walk between the patients' tent, the beds and stuff. Engineers did a good job helping us, so that was good.
How did you get back then to the United States when it was all over?
Well, we after the war ended, we were stationed in different places till we got our time come up. I had more experience overseas, so I got back before my husband did, but he had more time in the Army, but he had more time in the States than I did overseas. So I got home before he did. We'd go to these rest areas until the boats came that we could go back on, but we were stationed in a rest area until we had a boat to come home. Then we come home by boat.
But did you have to come home on a hospital ship
No,
too, or you could?
no, we didn't, because we were all healthy,
Yeah.
so we didn't have to come home on it. We went over on we come back once on a hospital ship was full of patients. We did that once. So that was good. The boys were all good on that, waiting to go home. They were wounded, but they were waiting to go home. That was a good setup. The hospital ship, though, was a lot less even to ride. It wasn't a very big ship compared to like the St. Mary's and the Mary's and the other ones were. But I didn't get sick because I got a good stomach, I guess, but a lot of them did get sick because of we slept in our part of the ship had 5 beds up that we crawled to sleep. But it was kind of weary for us, some of us. A lot of things happened, but another thing we did one time was a no-no. We'd gotten a vacation in Paris when our platoon was down. We got a trip to Paris, and we had a ride in not a truck, but what do we call ambulance truck, and we had 6 of us in this ambulance riding to and from Paris. We were looking out, and we saw a German tank out in the field, and they said, "Oh, let's go see that." And of course, that was off limits too, because we didn't know if it was lined or mined or not. But we went, and we wish we hadn't, because we looked in it and it was full of dead Germans, still burned to crisp. We learned to stay off the fields after that. We didn't try that kind of stuff anymore. But as a whole, that was pretty much what I did.
Now, all the nurses, were they all officers?
Mm-hmm. We were second lieutenants as we went in, and I come out as a first lieutenant.
So all of RNs and
Yeah, they were RNs, and so they were second lieutenants. Yep. It was a different kind of care than we got in the States, but it was good. I'd do it again if I were young and they needed me. It was a good experience.
Well, that was great.
Can you talk about Buchenwald, Mom?
Well, we went through one concentration camp, and it was after the war, and we were the first medical group through it. And the prisoners were still there, and the dead and the alive were still there. And we went in and fed the patients and took care of them. They were all had dysentery, so bad they were in the hospital, in our tents, patients. And we fed them soup, the sea rations. We had to dilute that for them because they were so emaciated. They were bad shape when we got them. And we took care of them until they could leave on wherever they could go. But it was bad. It was a bad setup. One we could have not seen, I think. It was not good.